Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be reviewing the new cards in the core set that's been revealed a couple of days back. So as you see here, I have Paladin, and Paladin I think there's two new cards that I want to talk about. The first one is Reckoning. So Reckoning is a mana secret. It says after an enemy minion deals 3 or more damage, destroy it. So I actually like this secret, and I think it's better than the other Paladin secrets that we've seen, just because it could be used defensively. So it can filter out the weak minions. So let's say you have a bunch of minions, a lot of them are weak, and you have one strong one that's troublesome. That one can actually help you guard against that minion. So you can think of the case where you have Rogue, and Rogue has a bunch of small minions, and it has like Edwin, which has like 12 attack. So as long as Rogue cannot attack, with three or more damage, then this can actually take care of Edwin or make Rogue be more hesitant in attacking with Edwin, for example. So and I think what's cool about it too is that it not just applies to the hero, but also applies if they are attacking your minions. So if they have a strong minion that's trying another strong minion that you have, and you have two of them, then it can only get rid of one before that secret destroys their strong minion. So I think it's good in slowing down the opponents, especially opponents with aggressive strategies in early game. So for example, Imprisoned, Thelma, or Edwin, Van Cleef, Questioning Adventurer, Questing Adventurer. So this could be used in a late game if you're trying to protect a strong minion that you have, or it could be used early game to just slow the opponent down. So I think it's a pretty good card. Not sure how it will be used though, because Paladin is not usually as defensive as we'd want it to be. It's usually, you create a lot of value, you have a lot of value cards, and you play them right after, one after the other until you basically beat your opponent. So kind of having a defensive card in there in your deck, I'm not sure how that fits in with the current Paladin archetypes that we see, but it's definitely much better than the other secrets I've seen. The next card is that I wanted to show today is Pursuit of Justice. So I'm really excited about this card. I think this is the best addition to Paladin. It's a 2-mana card. It's a spell, Holy type, and it says give +1 attack to silver hand recruits you summon this game. So this makes me think that you basically upgrade your hero power, because every time you summon a silver hand, it's going to be 2 attack and 1 health. But now this opens up a whole new token. I wouldn't say it's new. It basically revives the token Paladin archetype that we've seen before. So if you play this with Stand Against Darkness that summons 5, or Carnival Barker that gives +1/+2, or even the weapon Sword of Justice, Day at the Fair, all these played after you play the spell will give you silver hand recruits that are already like not just 1/1, they're strong, and then you can buff them if you want. And the cool thing is you can play 2 of these, so you can actually have a default of 3 attack and 1 health. So as I said, I think this could actually awaken the token Paladin archetype. So it'd be interesting to see. So I'm definitely going to try this one and see how it goes, because right now it's either you're playing with Libram Paladin, or you're playing with the most normal Paladin, like the one where you have a lot of Morlocks, and they have the high mana minions, and then you play the Carnival Clown to defend. So this could have a third type of Paladin in the archetype. So I'm definitely excited about this one. Next up is Demon Hunter. So the first card here is, let's show it, Corvus Bloodthorn. It's a 2-mana minion that has 2 attack and 2 health, charge and lifesteal. After you play a card with Outcast, return this to your hand. So I mean, this kind of at face value looks very interesting, and it looks like it could deal a lot of damage. But I mean, first of all, I think the lifesteal is useless unless you use it with Oganov, but we'll talk about this later. But dealing 2 damage face with 2 mana crystals, I mean, Demon Hunter can definitely do much better than that. But let's combine it with Outcast. So that's kind of here the trick, right? If you combine it with low-cost outcast cards like, Crimson Runner, Spectral Sight, Eye-Beam, Consume Magic, right? These are like the 1 to 2 mana outcast cards. The best you can do with 10 mana is play him 3 times. So that means 6 damage to the face with 6 health being restored to you. And that's assuming that you only play 1 cost outcast cards. And you can possibly push 1 more if you've played Skull of Gudan a previous turn and you actually have like 0 outcast cards. So for me, I think it's a bit slow for Demon Hunter because Demon Hunter could generate much more. It could deal 6-8 damage without needing to use 10 mana crystals to do that. So I'm not sure how that fits in, right? And that also assumes that there is an opponent in front of you at the moment. And now I think the lifesteal here is the part that could be used in a more applicable way if you combine it with Il'gynoth Demon Hunter, because now if you have Eye-Beam and combine Eye-Beam with Corvus twice, and you have Il'gynoth, and you don't necessarily need 2 of them. I think it's called Moar, the one that doubles the spell damage. So that actually complements that strategy, and could make you, have your winning condition could be easier to achieve given that you have Corvus. So that's something kind of to keep in mind in a way. But other than that, I'm not sure. It just seems a bit slow. Not necessarily slow. I mean, you can still do 2 damage, but just especially with Demon Hunter, it's very easy to deal that amount of damage, with much less. So yeah, I don't know. That's just my opinion, and we'll see how that goes with other minions. And maybe with the new expansion, there'll be something out there that complements this card in Demon Hunter decks. But right now, as it stands, it doesn't look too interesting to me. The next card here is Gunarg Glaive Smith. So that's a 3-cost card. It has 3 attack and 2 health. Outcast, give your hero +3 attack this turn. Again, with what we've seen, it seems for me it's a bit slow. I mean, if 3-cost minion with 3/2 stats is below average, just stat wise, and then you have a strict condition that this needs to be on the left or the rightmost of your deck to give you +3 attack this turn, and we know that Demon Hunter can easily generate attack. So using this card and using all 3 mana seems to me like kind of an overkill. So I don't know, but I just think there are better cards. If you want to drop a minion and at the same time attack the hero, this card seems a bit slow. If the outcast condition wasn't there, if it just gives you her +3 attack, I think that will see more play. But given that it's outcast, I think that hurts it. Yeah, that's kind of all I have to say about this minion. And again, not very excited about it. And then the last one, which I think is the best minion in this whole core set, is Elidari Inquisitor. So it's an 8-cost card. It's a demon minion, with 8 attack and 8 health. Rush. After your hero attacks an enemy, this attacks it too. Now, this is very, very strong because you can think of it at turn 8, you already have a weapon equipped, and that's kind of normal with Demon Hunter to have a weapon in your hand anyway. You play him on turn 8, you attack a very strong minion, could be a taunt that the opponent put just to stop you from keeping an attack in your face, right? And then after you kill that minion, you can use your weapon to attack the opponent's hero, whether it's even just 1 damage, and this will do another 8 damage to the opponent. So this could be a huge swing turn. So I think the fact that we have a very strong attack minion that can hit twice, one minion once, like twice, as in the minion once and then the hero another time, I think it's just too strong. Maybe if it wasn't Rush, it would make sense. But the fact that it's Rush, and then after your hero attacks an enemy, whether it's the minion, another minion, or the hero, I think that makes it really, really strong. So, yeah, I just think we'll see a lot of play in this card, using this card. So, we'll see. Even with the current type of decks that we see with Demon Hunter, I think this will find a place as well. Especially, if you play Skull of Gudan and you get it for 5, That's even better. Um, and I think you don't need to play big demon hunter to fit in this card. You can still play with the aggressive demon hunters with low cost cards, and this will still fit in. So yeah, I definitely played a lot with aggressive demon hunter. I'm gonna add them to that deck and see what how it performs. So next up is druid. So the first card I'll talk about here is Feral Rage. It's a 3-cost spell. Choose one. Give your hero +4 attack this turn or gain 8 armor. Now this looks like a card that we've seen before, even though I kind of went back and checked, and it's not. It's actually, I think, a new card somewhere. It's like something in between Moon-Touched Amulet and Bite. It's an okay card. It's not really too exciting, but it could buy Druid sometime, especially early game. If there's a stubborn minion that they're trying to get rid of, so they can use the +4 attack, or they're just trying to, put on some armor to stand some damage early on to do what they're trying to do late game. So I can see this, even with Token Druid, if you don't have the right tokens in your hand and you want to do this just temporarily, or, if you're a more controlled Druid and you have a lot of high-cost cards, you want to play them later, this helps you kind of, defend a little bit better, against strong, aggressive opponents. But yeah, that's all I have to say about this, and we'll see how it'll be used. The next one is actually the one that I'm most excited about in the Druid deck, which is Nord Rassel Druid. So this is a 4-cost minion with 3 attack and 5 health. Battle Cry, the next spell you cast this turn costs 3 less. Now, the reason why I think this is very exciting is because it allows you to play those, 3 to 5 mana spells without leaving yourself exposed. And what I mean by that is, on turn 6, for example, you can play this card with Force of Nature, Blowfly, Swarm, or Arbor Up, and you'll have an extra minion there, and you can actually, you can put more minions on the board very quickly. Even if that's not the case, even if you want to play it on turn 4, you can play that on turn 4, and you can still, play Wild Growth. So you can gain that Mana Crystal that you would have wanted to play on turn 3, but now you can play on turn 4, and you still have a minion there that can help you defend. Because typically when you play Overgrowth, Wild Growth, you kind of left there hanging, and sometimes even though you're gaining Mana Crystal, you're too slow, and especially with aggressive decks, they'll get you. So, you can think of turn 5, I play this, and I can still play Overgrowth. I can play this, or I can play Fungal Fortunes if I want to draw cards, Blessing of Ancient, or Wild Growth. All 3 of these spells could be played at turn 4 when you play this minion. So it gives you this additional flexibility, and you can ramp up mana without leaving your board empty or need to overload it, because you could use I forgot the name of the card. It's a 0-cost card that gives you 2 mana crystals that overload you by 2. So the good thing is you can actually achieve that without needing to overload. So I think this will see a lot of play in token Druid, more so than any other Druid deck type. So yeah, I'm excited to see this, and I think this will see a lot of play. Let's see. I think there was one more Druid card, yeah, Menagerie Warden. So, okay, let's just tell you the basic stats. So it's a 5-cost minion. It's 4 attack and 4 health. Battle Cry. Choose a friendly beast. Summon a copy of it. I don't see how this is different than Shandu Wildclaw, that legendary minion that came out. Forgot which expansion, but it's either previous one or the one before. Because that one is only 3 mana, and it could become a copy of a minion, a friendly beast that you have on the board. So what you're doing with this is you're spending 2 more mana, and you're getting basically an additional minion that has 4 attack and 4 health. But I just don't see that being worth it. I'd rather save that 2 mana and use it for something else. If I'm copying a beast, it's probably because that beast serves something that's very useful for me. Either it's a strong beast, or it has a quick battle, or it attacks, adjacent minions. Like, it has something special. So copying the beast is what I really care about. And if it only costs me 3, then that's all I want to do. So I'm not sure why I would want to carry 2 of them, and at the same time, just get another 4/4 minion and spend 2 extra mana. So just like we stopped seeing Shandu, Wildclaw in the current Druid decks, I just don't see where that would go. Again, it depends. Maybe there are other new beasts that will come out in the new expansion that complements Druid. if that's the case, it might be useful to have more of these cards that helps you summon more friendly beasts. Yeah. So, but for now, I don't like this card. So next up is Hunter. The new card here I want to show, there's actually two of them, but Quick Shot is the first one. So this is a 2-mana spell. It deals 3 damage. If your hand is empty, draw a card. So this applies to both minions and heroes to attack the hero. I think this is actually a very good card in aggressive decks, just because, you know, if you sometimes, a lot of times Hunter use all his resources, and you know, you just draw a card, and you know, if you're like, it's a good card, then you can keep, you know, dealing the extra damage that would make you win the game. But if it's a shitty card, then you're done. So this is good because if you draw this, you can actually deal 3 damage and draw another card. And you can imagine if you draw another Quick Shot, that's 6 damage, and you have potentially another card that you could use to wrap up the game. So I think it fits in very nicely with aggressive Hunter decks that we see out there. So it definitely complements it, and I'm excited to see it. I don't play with Hunter much, but I'm sure I'm going to be playing a lot against other Hunters who are going to be using this. And it's a bit frustrating because it's, you know, for 2 mana, you're dealing 3 damage and possibly drawing a card. And that is, you know, could very easily happen with how Hunter plays right now in the meta. So, yeah, it's an exciting and also annoying card to play against. The other one that I think is a bit less aggressive, but it gives you a bit more flexibility here, is Selective Breeder. So Selective Breeder is a 2-cost minion. It's 1 attack and 1 health, so the stats are not really that exciting. But the battle cry is discover a copy of a beast in your deck. So that the key thing here for me, I think, is that it's a copy. So, you know, you could use it to, for example, get another King Crush. Now that it's back in the core set, you know, King Crush can finish so many games for Hunter. You can get, even if you want to just use a beast early game, you can draw Face Talker. So now you can start activating your secrets and using them. It could just be even getting a copy of your Prime. So you play Zixor and you want to get the Prime as soon as possible, you can play this and get the Prime game next turn. So it has a lot of applications, I think. It's just tracking, but a bit more selective, as it says, for beasts. And beasts is where, you know, Hunter becomes shine. So I think this is even better than tracking, and maybe that's why it actually costs 1 more. So yeah, this is an exciting card, and you could argue that it's a bit slow. So the turn that you play Selective Breeder, it's slow, but it could kind of generate additional value later on. So it just depends what you're trading and what you're. So the next hero we'll talk about is Mage. There's only one card I think that's new, and that's Egwin the Guardian. So this is a legendary minion that costs 5 and has 5 attack and 5 health. So it's an average in terms of stats. But it says spell damage +2, death rattle. The next minion you draw inherits these powers. So, I mean, this is crazy. If it's a type of minion that, you know, once it dies, the next minion that you draw will gain +2 spell damage, and that's it. That's fine. But if it also retains the death rattle, then it's crazy. It's like a snowball effect. Like you'll you know, this is +2 damage. You don't even need to get to casting spells. Just wait until you get like a 1-cost minion, and then, you know, multiple ones. Especially that Mage already has like 1-cost minion that already has spell damage, so that's going to be +3, right? But if it keeps occurring, and with Mage having so many strong spells, this is crazy. So I actually went back to check to see, there's one card that has a similar death rattle. I want to see if the wording is the same or different. And that one is Dragon Rider Tarifa, I think. I don't know. That's what that's how I'm spelling it, but I'm not sure if it's, anyway. It says, it gives your dragon +3/+3, and this, it says this death rattle keeps jumping from one dragon to the other. So it says, like, you know, give the dragon +3/+3, and also give it this death rattle that's actually as part of the death rattle. Here it doesn't say that. The wording is a bit, it's not very clear, because it says the next minion you draw inherits these powers. It could be just the spell damage +2, or it could be the spell damage and the death rattle. Because the death rattle is not necessarily a power. So I think it would be more reasonable if just the next minion gets +2. But if that's not the case, then this is crazy because I mean this could be easily combined with Mizaki, and you can achieve a lot of spell damage very quickly. So that spell mage archetype that we've been seeing, it will become much stronger with Egwin the Guardian in it. So yeah, if you combine this with low cost 1 mana minions and have many spells, you can do a lot of serious damage. Especially if it keeps just passing from one minion to the other. But I think it will only be passed to the next minion. But I'm not sure. Maybe it's on a forum somewhere. Someone talked about it and they kind of figured it out. I need to look into it. But as it is already, it's quite a strong legendary minion. I think we'll see a lot of this in mage decks. I mean, regardless of what mage strategy you're using, mage tends to carry a lot of spells. Having a card like this that gives you spell damage +2 and just +5 alone is sometimes just good enough. So we'll see a lot of that in mage decks. I think it's a very strong core legendary card to have in mage. So next up is priest. The first card here is Crimson Clergy. It is a 1 mana minion that has 1 attack and 3 health. It says after a friendly character is healed, gain +1 attack. So I see this being more of an aggressive kind of card. So maybe priest will become a little bit more aggressive, especially if these are in the core set. So this will stay for a year. And it's cool. I mean, even if your opponent has a minion and attacks your hero, or if it attacks another minion, this minion is a bit resilient, especially the first early game of first mana or 2 mana, you might not be able to kill it right away. So if you end up healing it or healing your hero, you're at least getting 2 attack. But if you give it some health, you can have as much attack as you can generate. So I'd say this is more aggressive, and it's an interesting card to add. And you might see more aggressive priests because we've seen this in the past, but not recently. And the other 2 cards that they actually included. So the other one here is Focused Will. I think that complements that strategy. So it says it's a 1 mana spell. It says silence a minion, then give it +3 health. So this is like a Purify, but it's cheaper. And I think it doesn't draw a card, but in general, it silences that minions and gives it 3 health. And this is very useful, especially if you have Arcane Watcher, Ancient Watcher. I'm not sure if these 2 are going to be are going to rotate out. I think one of them for sure is Kane. I'm not sure if the other is rotating. But it makes them much more playable, and they are very aggressive. They're known to be very aggressive in silence and use them because there's a trade-off, right? They cost less, but you can't attack with them unless you have spell damage, or you just can't attack. So if you play this, then next turn right away you can deal serious damage, right? And I think what's even more frightening for me, because I don't play with priest, but I always get annoyed playing with priest, is now Humongous Razor Reef is back. So I mean that is I think a 3-cost card, 4 attack and 8 health, and of course it says can't attack, but you can play it at turn 3. And if you have the coin, then you can play Focused Well, and that's next turn you have a 4/11 mini that you need to deal with. So yeah, I think again this is pushing for more aggressive priests, and what even complements this is that final minion, which is Shadowed Spirit. So this is a 3-cost minion with 4 attack and 3 health. Throttle, deal 3 damage to the enemy hero. I mean, we've seen Hunter use the kind of alternative version of this called Cobalt Sand Trooper, which is like a 2 mana 2/1 minion that does 3 to the hero, damage to the hero. So again, this is just more support for what I'm thinking here is we're going to be starting to see much more aggressive priests. Has decent stats for a 3-cost minion. If it's above 3/3, then you have decent stats, and it also does that 3 extra damage. So I think it's a very cool card if you're gonna go towards that route. And I think priest has a card that resurrects like 1. I think it's a joint card between priest and paladin, but it can resurrect like 1, 2, and 3-cost minions. So if you can resurrect this again, it's decent stats, and it can deal another 3 damage to the hero. So it's a card to keep an eye on, and I think we'll see. I think it will see a decent amount of play once the rotation starts. There's only one rogue card that I want to talk about. I think that's the only new card. The other ones are either, they changed the cost or the stats, or they just brought them back from Wild. But anyway, it's Vanessa. So Vanessa Van Cleef. It's a 2-cost minion that has attack 2 and health 3. Combo, add a copy of the last card your opponent played to your hand. So I think this is actually a very exciting card, and I think it's actually quite powerful as well. And it just only costs 2. Yes, it's combo, but I mean, with the very low cost spells that or minions that Rogue has, this is very easy to play in turn 2 or turn 3 if you want to. But maybe you won't be playing it in turn 2 or 3 if you want to get very strong cards from your opponent. So this is, to me, is like it's more flexible than I think it's called Morozon the Infinite. That's the priest card that's plays all the last cards that your opponent played. When I've seen that card being played, a lot of times it actually ends up hurting me when I play it, just because it ends up casting a spell that hurts my minion, or it just you can't control it. There's some sense of randomness in it, and I'm not a big fan of randomness in Hearthstone. For some reason, random stuff always ends up hurting me. But the thing is, it can be timed, so you know what the last card your opponent plays, and you can time it so that you know if you like that card, you can get it. Of course, there's a disadvantage because if your opponent plays more than one card, plays 2, you're stuck to you only get the second one. So if last turn they play 2, and the second one is not the one you want, then you won't get it. So I can see after this being used a lot in the meta, and people being really annoyed every time they play with Rogue now, they get a bit more focused and like, okay, I have multiple cards I want to play. I want to make sure to purposefully play the card that I'm not gonna that I don't want Rogue kind of to benefit from. So play the weaker cards later. But I don't see that happening a lot. First of all, people forget myself do all these mistakes all the time. Even though I know what card Rogue has, I play a game, play a move, and then I realize, oh, I forgot Rogue has this card. So this happens a lot. But I think what's unique about this and how you can maximize its value is Rogue tends to be aggressive. So a lot of times your opponent only has one card that they can play given the turn, or they have 2 cards that they need to play, and they need to play them in a certain order to be able to counter what Rogue is doing. So you can force your opponent to play, especially knowing what kind of cards that they have, you can force them to play a certain combo in a certain way, and that way you can actually get the card that you want from them and maximize their value. So depends on how you play it, but worst case, best case scenario, it's a very good card to have. I don't see a disadvantage of having this in your deck as a Rogue player. So very exciting card. I think there's only one Shaman card that's new. I think, the other ones I think are just like when they either brought them back or the stats changed. But anyway, so it's Novice Zapper. It is a 1-cost minion that has 3 attack and 2 health, spell damage +1, and overload 1. I think this is a really good card. It's a very great 1-drop. Just given that it's only 1 mana, and it gives you that that spell damage. So even if you play it turn 1, turn 2, you can even though you have 1 mana, you could use, like, for example, something like Lightning Bolt to be able to get rid of that minion that they place. Or if you have the coin, you can play 2 of these if you happen to have them in your hand. And they're quite annoying to get rid of because, just like we've seen Flame Imp, right, with Warlock, they're not easy to get rid of if you don't have the right cards. So it's I think it's a very good card to have, whether you're your token shaman or if you're spell shaman. It's definitely one of the best 1-drops you can have with shaman. So I don't see why you wouldn't put it. It might be a bit annoying towards mid to late game because you really want all your mana crystals and you want to overload. But early game, it's fine. Overload by 1. If it was overload by 2, I understand, but your price is it's not that high. So I think it's worth it. So I really like this card, and I haven't played with Shaman a lot. I'm actually, I think once the new rotation happens, I'm gonna kind of Shaman is gonna be one of the new heroes that I focus on. So I'm gonna keep an eye on this one, and hopefully I can use it. I'm actually excited to try some of the new Shaman strategies. So next up is Warlock. There's 3 new cards that I'll talk about. The first one here is Ritual of Doom. That's a 0-cost shadow spell. It says destroy a friendly minion. I mean, that's it. If you have, if you had five or more minions, basically summon a 5/5 demon. So, I mean, I see this being used in the typical sense where if you have, like Bone Web Egg or Serpent Egg or Nerubian Egg, any of these eggs, you can use it and kind of get the Rattle. That's one way to do it, and it costs you 0, so you can take it in the same turn and activate it in the same turn. Another way to use it, which I think is also exciting, is in Zoo Warlock. However, I mean, with Zoo Warlock, you tend to be able to play a lot of minions, but this one might restrict you because if this is in your hand, then you have one less minion you can possibly play. So, and again, this you can only get that 5/5 demon if you actually have 5 minions on board. If you have less, then it's useless to destroy. So it helps. Having it in your hand is also restricting to its power, right? Because it might be the only card that's in your hand that's limiting you from putting that 5th minion, so you can kill it and get that 5/5 minion. So yeah, I think its value in general will come from killing, just triggering the death rattle of different minions that you could use. I'm not sure what it says about Demon Tyrant here. Okay, so Demon Tyrant is the minion, so you'll get basically a 5/5 demon as it claims. So yeah, again, I see this in Zoo. I don't see it in Control Warlock decks, so it's another card that we'll see every now and then, I think. Next up is, Fell Soul Jailer. So this is a 5-cost minion. It's a 4 attack and 6 health. Battle Cry, your opponent discards a minion, and this rat will return it. So just a temporary kind of discard for one of your opponent's minions. Now, I don't know. I'm not sure how this is again useful because, I mean, let's say you play this on turn 5. You discard the minion. The next turn, your opponent will most likely kill this. He's not going to leave it, or she's not going to leave it. So, if that minion was actually a high cost minion for them, then you didn't affect their gameplay. I mean, they used a few spells or maybe a minion to kill it, but then their high cost minion comes back to the hand, they'll use it, when the turn comes. 5 to 6 mana minion, then okay, you slowed them down a turn, but you also couldn't do it much just because you've used 5 of your mana to put this minion down on the board. And if it's a low cost minion that you discarded, then you didn't actually do anything. So you're carrying a risk if you end up doing it, right? So I know you're disrupting, the gameplay of the opponent, but are you really disrupting it? I'm not sure because you have nothing to lose. It'll come back to that. Now you can say, okay, well, I can silence the minion, and that's where the value is. So I put this and try to silence it. So yeah, you can do that. You could use Showstopper or Youthful Brewmaster. Again, these are neutral ones, right? Not specific to anyone. But the thing is, you need a very comfortable control type game to be able to carry out the strategy. If it's very quick, it won't really help you. So I don't know. This is kind of my thought on Fell Soul Jailer. I play with Warlock a lot. I've used different strategies, and given the different types of Warlock decks, I don't know where this one would fit. And even if we're to use it, how would you actually use it to disrupt your opponent's strategy? You're delaying it, but you're not necessarily completely disrupting it unless you silence this minion. So I'd love to get your thoughts, especially on this one, because I'm just not sure. I mean, it's an epic card, so it's supposed to be somewhat powerful, but I just don't see that. Maybe if it was cheaper, but yeah. And then finally, Enslaved Fell Lord. So that is a 7 mana minion. It's a demon with 4 attack and 10 health. Taunt. Also damages the minions next to whomever this attacks. So first of all, you put this taunt in turn 7. If they attack you, it doesn't attack an adjacent minion for them. But if it survives and it hits a minion, then that's when it starts to deal with that adjacent damage, basically. So I think it's a decent taunt. In fact, from the fact that it's demon as well, it means you can resurrect it with the primer. But I don't know why I would give it more than that. It just seems again a bit slow for me. You won't really use that extra perk that I see here from deal damage to whomever this attacks. It needs to kind of survive your opponent's turn. So, and if it doesn't, then you didn't really gain much. It's just a taunt. Now, a 4/10 taunt, I mean, you could argue this is just like the Bone Chewer Vanguard. If anything, Volunteer Vanguard is better because it keeps increasing in attack every time you deal damage. So it's just sometimes very hard to kill a 10 health minion with just, one hit. So in terms of defending, this is not the best compared to the other one. And you don't necessarily use taunts that. You don't usually want to attack with taunts. So again, I'm not a big fan of this. And going back to the primer comment that I made is that, I mean, yeah, you can resurrect this with the primer, but I think a better taunt would be enhanced Dreadlord because, it's, yes, it doesn't have as much health, but once they kill it, they have a lifesteal minion that you need to destroy, otherwise you can recover a lot of your health back. So it's not a bad card, but I think there are better cards out there for the purpose of what it's trying to accomplish here. Because using it to deal damage to minions and the ones next to it, I don't see that being very applicable. So yeah, it's not highly rated, this card, at least for me. When I play with Warlock, I don't think I'll be having it in any of my decks, but again, we'll see. It is, at the end of the day, it's a common card, so but I mean, that doesn't deny that there are some really good common cards, but I don't think this is one of them. So next up is Warrior. I think there are three new cards here. The first one is a 1-cost minion with 2 attack and 1 health. It's a pirate. Battle Cry, the next weapon you play costs 1 less. I think this is actually a very good, it's the perfect 1-drop, in my opinion, for Warrior. It's even more so than Imprisoned Gunard. I think that's how to pronounce it. Because first of all, the stats are not bad for a 1-drop. And, if you combine this, for example, with Corsair Cash, and at turn 3, you're ready to play a strong weapon, a 4-cost weapon, such as like Reaper's Scythe. I was gonna say Wrench Caliber, but then I realized that Wrench Caliber is actually rotating out. It's a shame that this is coming in when Wrench Caliber is leaving, but overall, if we start to see a more weapon-heavy warrior, this will be very useful, I think. So, and the cool thing is that it stays with you. So it's not like, this turn. You play it, you leave it. Whenever you get the weapon, you're going to benefit from having it reduced by 1. So yeah, I think it's a very exciting card. And I think we'll see a decent play of it, even though it's common 1-cost card. I think it's still powerful enough to use. The next one is, I think, Warsong Outrider. So when I first saw this, I was like, well, why would I put this in my deck? Why would I just put Restless Mummy? But then again, I realized Restless Mummy is also leaving. So this is a decent alternative. I don't think it's as good, but it's still, it's like Kargath, but it still has 1 extra attack. And of course, it doesn't have the rattle of the primer, but still. So I think it will see decent play. It's good. It can help you defend early game, just like most rush minions. There's always like that 4-cost rush minion that Warrior tends to have, and this is that. So yeah, I think it's a decent card, and we'll see it every now and then, but nothing special. I wouldn't say there's anything special about this card. Next up is, I think, the last one here. So the last one here is War Cash. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this right. Maybe someone can let me know. But anyway, it's a 3-cost spell. Add a random warrior minion, spell, weapon to your hand. So this is basically an exact copy of what we've seen with Hunter. Hunter, had that same card. I think it's good. I think it's good for control warrior. You need to have a slow game where you're not in a rush, and this will could generate possible value for you. Again, there's that random aspect of it. I don't like randomness. Again, you could get like really bad minions, spells, and weapons, or you can get one that's good or bad. So, but if you have an aggressive opponent, you won't even find the time to play a card like this because you play the turn 3, and that's it. You can't do anything else. So, again, I think it's good for control warrior, but other than that, I'm not sure where else it would go. Yeah, so if you're playing against a rogue or a hunter or a demon hunter, you might not be able to play this card. But if you're playing against a priest, maybe not the new aggressive priest that we'll probably be seeing, but if you play against a priest, possibly shaman, depending on what type of shaman, maybe warlock, then we could carry this card with you and see how it turns out. It just depends on how quick or slow the meta is at the time. If it's slow, put this in. If it's quick, there's no time for it. But yeah, again, this is just simply a the hunter card that we've seen, and it makes me wonder why this is like not a dual card, right? Because it could just be dual for hunter and border. So yeah, cool card, but yeah, I'm not sure how much play we'll see from this card. There will be some, but not too much. So finally, we have the neutral cards. So the first new card here is Fog Sail Freebooter. It's a 2 minion card. It's a pirate with 2 attack and 2 health. Battle Cry. If you have a weapon equipped, deal 2 damage. For me, this actually, like when I first saw it, I was like, this is basically, I think it's called, let me see here, South Sea Deckhand, right? That's basically the pirate that Rogue uses all the time. But then I realized that it's actually, that card is no longer in Classic. Well, once the rotation happens. So I think this will be just Fox Sail will be a direct substitution for that card, and it costs 1 more mana, true, but it also gives you the flexibility that you can deal 2 damage even above a taunt. Like so, if you have a taunt, you can still damage the hero. But in terms of application advantages, I think it's going to be pretty much played in the same situations as when you play South Sea Deckhand. So I think it's a decent card. I think again it's going to be an aggressive type decks. With a lot of weapons. Otherwise, you can't really use the battle cry, and if you can't use the battle cry, there's no point to carrying this card in your deck. Next up is Mini Mage. So it's this card right here. It's a 3-cost card with 3 attack and 1 health. I think the stats are not really relevant here, but for stats, it's not bad. The cool thing is it's stealth and it's spell damage +1. So I doubt anyone who's going to be using this card is going to actually be using the attack with it unless they're about to wrap up the game. So it's quite annoying. It's quite an annoying card to deal with just because if you don't have an AoE spell or a type of minion that attacks adjacent minions, then you're kind of left stuck with a minion that's going to be spell damage +1 the entire game. So it could be really annoying, especially if rogues or mage heroes start using this card. So yeah, as I mentioned, I doubt people will be using this to actually deal that 3 damage or the 3 attack, so they can just keep it stealth there as long as the opponent can't do anything about it, just leave it, and every time I want to cast a spell, I can deal more damage. Even Shaman, even spell Shaman could also use this. They have different ways of generating value, but I can see any hero that relies heavily, have a strategy that relies heavily on spells can benefit from this. Will it see a lot of gameplay? I don't know, because there's also other alternatives and other minions that can be spell damage. So it's not also the only advantage that this one has is that it's stealth. You can actually keep it for a while. But again, it depends on the opponent. Some opponents can easily deal with this. So it just depends. So next up is Overlord Runtak. This is a 5-cost minion with 3 attack and 6 health. Its rush, whenever this attacks, gives +1/+1 to all minions in your hand. Again, it's a legendary minion. It's not exciting for me. Let's say it's turn 5, you play it, you kill a minion, or you just attack a minion and give the minions in your hand +1/+1. And next turn, this minion will probably die, just because you've attacked with it, and next turn your opponent will have more options to kill it. So what did you really gain? You just gave some minions in your hand +1/+1, and that's it. So just that for me is not usually enough. Even if you have 3-4 minions now in your hand that have +1/+1, that didn't really help my strategy. Maybe if these minions can summon a copy of themselves, or they have an interesting power that activates if they're buffed, something like that. But if it doesn't, then I just don't see that just +1/+1 is worth putting this minion in. Especially that the stats are average for a 5-cost minion. It's not that high. And in general, these like hand buffing strategies, I haven't seen them very consistent in higher ranks. I haven't seen them do well, or even seen them at all. So I'll be curious to see how this is played and played effectively in higher ranks, and if it can actually be used. And I see, in some games you can probably be lucky, and that value that you generate, you have like 6, 7, 8 minions, and all of them get +1/+1, and it just creates enough value for you to win the game. But overall, I just don't see that happening much. I think it would be more interesting if this +1/+1, for example, applies to your minions in your hand and your deck, that way, yeah, you're giving every minion, +1/+1 that could potentially be enough, even though for me it really isn't. But even if that's not the case, maybe if it gives +2/+2, so that two minions in your hand doesn't have to be hand and deck. But where it is right now, I actually think it's too weak. But again, that's my personal opinion, and we'll see. Maybe I'm sure people are smart enough and they'll come up with ways to use it. But right now, I don't know how I would use it to actually win games at high ranks. The next one is Talon Swordring. I really like this card actually. So it's a 5-cost card with 3 attack and 3 health, Taunt, Divine Shield, Death Rattle, draw your highest cost card. So if you play this on turn 5, your opponent will either have to silence it or they'll have to kill it. So it's quite a resilient minion to have in your board. Because some could argue that this is slow. You're putting that minion, yes, you'll draw the highest cost minion, but at turn 5, you just put this, your opponent will have, other strategies, maybe a lot of other minions. But with this being on board, if you don't have a silence or they can turn to your hand, then they'll have to deal with it. So that will slow them down. You're not kind of left, doesn't leave you out to dry. I think if it didn't have the taunt, or if it didn't have the divine shield, then yes, it would be kind of a bit slow. I think even if you're drawing that cost minion. But because it has both, I think that's what makes it special. And I mean, you can think about it. This could give you like Scrapyard Colossus, Scrapyard Colossus, or it could give you Nzoth. It could give you basically all the gods. So if you have like a specific one that you want to draw, and that's the only one in your deck, then you basically draw it. And this could be, if you have your clowns in your hand and you want to corrupt them, but you're just waiting for the extra, for that 10-cost card, this will get you that card. Another strategy is, let's say you play all four spells from Cthulhu, and you're ready to put it, but you're just waiting to draw it. This will draw Cthulhu for you. So it has a lot of applications, and it's stubborn enough that it will slow down the opponent while you're actually trying to draw your highest cost minion. So you're not really trading a lot of damage by putting this card, or by trying to draw your highest cost card, you're not actually taking a lot of damage, or you're not being penalized a lot for doing that. And I think this in general will be seen in a lot of control decks. So yeah, it's a legendary card, I think, as it should be, and it's quite strong. And it can get you to reach the strategy or your winning move much quicker. Yeah, the next card is Nosdormo the Eternal. It's a 7-cost dragon that has 8 health and 8 attack. Start of game, if this is in both players' decks, turns are only 15 seconds long. This is the kind of game where if both of us have that card, it'll tell me like both of us are on the same frequency, right? We get each other. Let's get this game over with. One of us will level up, the other one will level down, and let's just move on to the next game. Or if you're confident, if both of you are confident and you tend to make, you think you make quick, good decisions. So, both of you play that, and basically one of you will prove to the other person that, what, I tend to make decisions faster than you and better. That's why I'm winning. So, I think it's an interesting card. I don't think we'll see this in, in any serious gameplay or serious ranks, just because it's a 7-cost card with 8/8, and it doesn't really have any other value. And the thing is, it needs to be both of you. If it's just one, then I understand you can actually try to use it to your advantage, but it needs to be both of you. So if it's both of you are prepared to deal with the consequences of only like 15 seconds. So yeah, and I think it's a meme card, but in general, it's just interesting, and I think it's a fun card to have around. But is it going to see any play? Probably not much. Not in standard, I think. No, maybe in wild or casual games. Next up is Alexstrasza, the Life Bender. It's a 9-cost dragon minion that has 8 attack and 8 health. Battle cry: choose a character. It's friendly, restore 8 health. If it's an enemy, deal 8 damage. I understand that they're taking Alexstrasza out and they're going to put this different version of Alexstrasza, and I just don't think it's as good as the original Alexstrasza. I think the stats of this dragon in general, whether it's 8/8 or 7/7 or 9/9, the stats itself are meaningless, right? And that didn't change. It's the same. What really mattered was the battle cry of this minion. And if you want to deal 8 damage, um, if you like, I've used that class a lot of times when I just it's a hunter or a rogue and you just keep attacking and my health is like 1 or 2. And Straz is kind of my last option, and getting my health back to 15. I'll recover 1 turn and then do something on the next turn. So if you're trying to use it in that application, this is useless because if you have 1 or 2 health and restore 8, you're still less. So like the other Straza is better because I just don't know if that 8 health will actually help. It's that big swing in health or damage that actually matters, I think. So let me see what I have here. Yeah, so if you're trying to heal 8, I guess an aggressive deck, that's just not going to cut it for you, and you're going to end up killing you next turn. It's just way harder to kill you if you have 15 health versus if you have 10 or 8 or 9. And there are definitely cheaper ways for you to restore 8 health to your hero and even to your enemy minions. So there's no need for me, like Paladin has, for example, a 2-cost healing spell that will restore 8 health. I don't need to play that minion, right? If I'm playing the minion, it means I'm playing it for the stats, but the stats are not really that important in this minion, I think. So and I mean the fact that it deals 8 damage is also good. So like it's basically like King Crush, but it's a bit more flexible. If there's a taunt, you can go above the taunt, or you could use it like if there's a really strong minion and you want to kill that minion and have a swing turn where now you have a strong minion and the opponent doesn't have any other minions. Yes, that could be useful, but again, that's not what Electraza is useful, in my opinion. So that trade from 15 to 8 for the additional flexibility that now you can include minions and not just heroes is not really worth it for me to actually put it in my deck for the purposes I was using. It is the big swing in your hero's health or the opponent's that health is what actually made that Straza useful, not necessarily the fact that it could be used on minions and heroes. So again, I don't necessarily like this version of Electraza. Maybe people will find some use to it, but I'm not a big fan of it, and I don't think it's the same. I think I would consider this a completely different card to the way Electraza originally was used. Again, that's my humble opinion. I would like to hear from you guys what you think, but just 8 is not enough. Maybe if it was 10 or more, but 8 is not enough. Next up is Malicos, the Spellweaver. It's a 9-cost dragon with 4 attack and 12 health. Battle cry, draw spells until your hand is full. So I don't know how this will be used. I'm curious to see it in play. I mean, obviously, if you're a mage, you would use it. But the problem is, if you play the turn 9 and you don't have a 0-cost spell, there's a very high chance you'll burn a card. Besides that, it'll also fatigue you much quicker, right? So I'm sure that's also going to be taken into account. So something to kind of keep in mind because, if you draw 6-7 cards from one turn, then you're going to be fatiguing much sooner than your opponent. But I mean, even if you think about it, if you play this with the current spell mage deck that uses Mozaki, I mean, if you play this on your turn and then you draw all the spells you need, and you already have Mozaki in your hand, you're basically telling your opponent if you don't do anything by next turn, you're going to be dead. So this is kind of one of the easy ways I can see Malagos being played. And I'm sure it will see play in other decks too. But you could use it, for example, like if you have a warrior deck that doesn't have that many spells, you could use it to draw all your Cocoon spells and activate your Cocoon quicker. So that's one way to use it. If you have few selected spells that you like to use and they're useful to use, like Brawl or other ones that could be defensive, this could be used to draw them, to keep them in your hand, and even draw other spells that you're interested in. And even just not spells. I mean, in general, this could help you like in one turn draw as many cards as you'd like to draw. So it could even just be used as a way to draw a lot of cards, right? Because sometimes you're stuck and you don't have that many cards in your hand. This could draw a lot of cards for you without needing to put like 2, 3, 4, or 5, cards in your spells in your deck that allows you to draw more cards. I think it's useful in that fashion. But yeah, I don't have a specific idea of how I would use it right now, but I'm sure it's highly applicable. And I like this card. I think it's actually a very good legendary card in general. Onyxia, the Broodmother. It's a 9-cost dragon with 8 attack and 8 health. At the end of each turn, fill your board with 1/1 whelps. I mean, the moment I see this, I'm just thinking token druid. Right? Put this in. If they keep killing my tokens and my trends, just put this in, and if they can't deal with that dragon, they can kill the rest of them. But if you can't deal with that dragon, I know that next turn I'm going to be generating more 1/1s, and then I just need one turn where I can buff them up and kill the opponent. So that's for me like how I would use it right away. I was thinking maybe like token shaman, but now Bloodlust is gone, so I'm not sure that would actually be benefit for for shaman. Maybe Zoo Warlock, if you combine this with a what is it called? I think it's called Wicked Whispers or Wicked Whispers. You can on turn 10 play this, discard your lowest card, and you have basically a 9/9 dragon and 2/2s on the entire board. And it doesn't have to be necessarily a Zoo Warlock, right? It could be any Warlock strategy. So I think it will see applications. These whelps in general, like those cards that tend to generate a lot of whelps, I haven't seen them being played much. And if they're played, they're only usually played in token archetypes. So I think it will see some people experiment with it, or when the core set rotates in. But whether it will stick or not, we'll see. We'll have to see how effective it is, because some people could argue that it's a bit too late, it's a bit slow. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. But overall, I think it's a good card, and it will see some play. Next up is Ysera the Dreamer. So this is basically the new Ysera now. It's a 9-cost dragon, 4 attack, 12 health, battle cry. Add 1 of each dream card to your hand. The dream cards, as you see here, if you remember, there's Nightmare that gives +1/5/5, and it kills the minion the next turn. There's Ysera Awaken, deals 5 damage. Laughing Sister, it's a minion. I think it's you can't target it with spells or hero power. There's Emerald Drake, and there's Dream. I think this is actually, for me, the most useful one. Return a minion to its owner's hand. And that in itself is kind of useful, because you can play this on turn 9, and you can put Ysera back in your hand. Or if there's a very strong minion, and you don't know what to do with it, you can play Ysera. You have a resilient like minion that can stay on the board, and you can give the minion back to their hand. So you could actually use 2 of these dream cards in that same turn. And I think I like it much more this way, because, again, that randomness factor is not there anymore. You have the cards, you'll use them whenever you need them, and you can kind of plan on using them in certain ways. But not play it and then get 1 card, and, if you get, like, usually when I get this card, I'm like, what's the point? Like, this is not even a card worth playing, I think. But if you get all 5, then, if the game is slow, you can put Dragon and put Laughing Sister. If the game is quick and you need to act quickly, you can play Ysera Awakens, you can give the minion back to their hand, or if you have a minion and it's going to die anyway, might as well give it +5/+5 and attack the hero, or kill a strong minion that they have. But yeah, I really like this version of Ysera much more than the previous one. And I think it just increases the chance of seeing Ysera being played. Maybe it won't be like seen all the time, but if it was going to be played and have a good chance of being played right now in the meta, this is a better way to have it rather than how it was before. And finally, this is the last minion I'll talk about today. So it is Deathwing, the Destroyer. So this is Deathwing basically. They did a slight twist on it. So it's still 10 cost with 12 attack and 12 health. The battle cry is destroy all other minions, and then discard a card for each one destroyed, basically. So whether it's your minion or their minion, if there's like 5 minions and you put it and destroy all 5, 2 from you and 3 from them, you're still gonna have to discard 5 minions. That's based on my understanding. Now, I understand where they're coming from to why they changed the wording so that it becomes a bit more popular, a bit more useful. But I still think it will only be played in the same situations that Deathwing will be played in. So usually play Deathwing if you're stuck. You have very few cards in your hand and you don't know what to do, and this is the only option that you have. And if you're playing it, there are going to be at least 1 or 2 minions. I mean, if you're lucky, maybe 1 to discard only 1 minion, but let's say there's only 2 or 3 minions and you want to just play this to get rid of them. The reason why you played this is because you didn't have that many options to begin with, and you didn't have great cards, so you can still be somewhat discarding your entire hand, even though it's only for the number of minions. So maybe in the few cases that there's only one minion and you don't know how to deal with it, and this does it for you, and it only costs you one card instead of like the 3-4 in your hand. But I think most times you'll be playing this because the opponent has so many. So you play it, and then you can end up discarding your hand anyway, unless you have 10 cards in your hand and you decide to play Deathwing. But if you have 10 cards in your hand and you decide to play Deathwing, then maybe you're not putting the right cards in your hand because you can't deal with the situation. If you have 10 cards, or even 8, you should be able to find a solution that doesn't involve Deathwing. So again, I think it's cool that they have it this way. I think it gives it, again, a bit more advantage for you to see it being played a bit more, but I just don't think it's enough to see more Deathwings in the net. So yeah, this is pretty much it. This is my humble opinion. I would love to hear more about what you guys think about the cards that I talked about, and if you have a specific card that you're really excited to talk about, let me know what you think about it. Or maybe if you think I'm saying something wrong, or it could be there's a different angle that I haven't thought about, I would love to hear it. But yeah, this has been fun, and I'm really excited for the new card set to come in. And when they start revealing more of the cards in the new expansion, I'll release another video, whether it's next week or the week after. But yeah, till then, see you guys later.